When a wolf stumbled upon a helpless hiker, tightly bound and left for dead against a tree, everyone assumed the worst would follow. But what the wild animal did next was something nobody could have ever imagined, and it stunned everyone. Deep within the rugged wilderness of Yellowstone National Park, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Amid this serene beauty, Alex Carter, a seasoned hiker and nature photographer, had embarked on a solitary hike, eager to capture the breathtaking landscape. But as darkness quickly approached, Alex was nowhere near the safety of his campsite. Miles off the beaten path, Alex's breaths came in panicked gasps, hands trembling against rough ropes tightly securing him to an old pine tree. Hours earlier, an innocent detour had turned into a nightmare. Two masked men ambushed him, stealing his gear, camera, and phone, before leaving him tied helplessly in the forest, mocking him cruelly. Good luck surviving the night, they'd laughed before vanishing into the wilderness. As night descended, bitter cold seeped through Alex's thin jacket, and fear gripped his chest. Alone, injured, and without hope of rescue, the reality of his predicament felt grim. His desperate shouts had echoed fruitlessly through the trees, unanswered. Silence surrounded him now, pierced only by the occasional rustling of leaves or distant call of wildlife. Then suddenly, a shadow moved silently in the fading twilight, something large, powerful, and undeniably wild. Alex froze, heart pounding violently. He squinted desperately into the darkening woods, realizing with cold dread what had found him. A wolf, massive, its piercing golden eyes glowing faintly, stepped cautiously into view, muscles rippling beneath a thick coat of gray and silver fur. Alex's breathing quickened, eyes widening in terror. Wolves were apex predators, capable of taking down prey far stronger and healthier than himself. Bound, vulnerable, and entirely at its mercy, Alex felt his heart sink. The wolf moved closer, sniffing the air, powerful jaws slightly parted to reveal gleaming white fangs. Alex trembled, eyes clenched shut, waiting helplessly for sharp teeth to close upon him. He had no hope left, bracing himself for the end. But what happened next defied logic, expectation, and nature itself, something so shocking, so entirely unexpected, it would forever alter Alex's understanding of the wild creatures who roam Yellowstone's wilderness. Instead of attacking, the wolf did something that left Alex utterly speechless, and proved even wild predators could reveal a compassion no one could have anticipated. Alex's pulse thundered in his ears, adrenaline coursing violently as he faced the wolf's penetrating gaze. Fear gripped him with such intensity that he barely dared breathe, every instinct screaming for him to flee. Yet tied tightly to the tree, escape was impossible. His fate rested entirely in the jaws of this formidable creature. The wolf slowly approached, its careful movements graceful yet powerful, each silent paw step bringing it closer. Moonlight now illuminated its muscular form clearly, highlighting the creature's sheer strength. Alex's breathing quickened, eyes wide with dread. But instead of the attack he anticipated, the wolf paused just feet away, observing him curiously. Alex forced himself to remain completely still, desperately trying to avoid provoking the animal. Time seemed suspended as their eyes locked, human fear meeting animal curiosity. Then, in a move Alex could never have predicted, the wolf lowered its head slowly, sniffing cautiously around Alex's boots. Confusion mixed with relief flooded Alex's mind. Could it smell food in his pockets? Was it merely curious rather than hungry? The wolf continued circling him slowly, careful yet calm, ears pricked forward attentively. Then it paused behind the tree, close enough Alex could feel the warmth of its breath near his bound hands. A shudder rippled through him, heart racing again with renewed anxiety. Suddenly, he felt a tug on the rope, a sharp, insistent pull that nearly stopped his heart. The wolf was pulling, actually biting at the ropes. Alex's mouth fell open in disbelief. Could this wild creature truly be attempting to free him? Or was this some cruel trick, an instinctive act mistaken for kindness? The wolf continued gnawing, steadily weakening the fibers binding Alex to the tree. Alex remained motionless, scarcely daring to breathe, bewildered and stunned. In mere moments, the ropes loosened significantly, until finally, with one powerful jerk from the wolf, his hands came free. Alex stumbled forward, collapsing to his knees. He rubbed his wrists, raw from the tight bindings. The wolf stepped back cautiously, maintaining distance yet watching carefully. Its gaze was calm, without aggression, as though simply observing Alex's next move. Slowly, Alex rose to his feet, cautious but deeply grateful. "Thank you," he whispered softly, astonished by his own words. The wolf tilted its head slightly, ears flickering. Could it somehow sense his gratitude? Alex knew he was far from safe, still deep within Yellowstone's wilderness, miles from help and disoriented by darkness. Yet an inexplicable trust seemed to have formed between himself and this creature, a bond forged in vulnerability and unexpected kindness. Tentatively, Alex stepped forward, testing the wolf's reaction. Surprisingly, the animal did not retreat or attack. Instead, it watched him quietly, patiently, as though waiting for him to decide their next move. Alex realized suddenly, the wolf was his best and possibly only chance for survival tonight. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Alex spoke again gently, voice quiet yet steady. "I don't know if you can understand me," he said softly, "but please, help me get out of here." The wolf studied him intently, intelligent eyes reflecting moonlight, as though processing the human's plea. Then, with a soft huff, the wolf turned gracefully, glancing briefly back at Alex, inviting him forward. Hesitantly, Alex followed, trusting instincts he didn't fully understand. The wolf moved with purpose, guiding him slowly through tangled branches, past fallen logs and sharp rocks hidden in shadow. Despite fatigue and lingering fear, hope surged within Alex, a cautious optimism that this wild creature was genuinely leading him towards safety. Yet beneath his relief, countless questions swirled. Why had the wolf chosen to help rather than harm him? Had he simply misunderstood wild wolves entirely? Or was there something truly extraordinary about this particular creature, its motives deeper and more meaningful than mere instinct? Hours passed slowly, exhaustion setting in as Alex followed the wolf's silent guidance. Eventually, the creature paused at the edge of a clearing. Ahead, faintly visible through the trees, flickered the dim glow of distant lights. Human habitation, a ranger station or camp, lay just ahead. Alex's breath caught sharply, eyes watering with sudden emotion. The wolf had led him to safety, a selfless act that defied everything he'd known about wilderness and survival. Yet, before Alex could fully grasp this miracle, the wolf abruptly froze, ears flattened, low growl rumbling from deep within its chest. Alex turned quickly, heart pounding with renewed dread. What had alarmed the wolf now? Through the trees behind them came the sound of footsteps, human footsteps approaching fast. Had his attackers returned, intent on finishing what they started? The wolf's stance turned protective, hackles raised, a fierce guardian ready to defend Alex from danger. Alex held his breath, heart racing as the footsteps closed in rapidly. Whatever approached, the wolf clearly sensed imminent threat and was prepared to confront it fiercely. Alex stood frozen, adrenaline surging anew as the footsteps drew closer. Panic flooded him. Had his assailants returned to silence him forever? Beside him, the wolf remained rigidly alert, eyes narrowed, growl vibrating low and menacing. Then, emerging into the moonlit clearing, two familiar figures appeared, illuminated by the cold glow of flashlights. Alex recognized instantly their dark clothing, masked faces now clearly visible in the artificial glare. They were the same men who'd attacked him earlier, dangerous and unafraid. "Well, look what we've got here," sneered the taller man, stepping confidently into the open. He smirked arrogantly, clearly believing Alex was still alone, helpless. "Didn't think you'd get far tied up like that. Guess we'll have to finish the job properly this time." His companion laughed darkly, advancing closer. "Yeah, no loose ends." Alex backed away instinctively, pulse hammering in panic, but suddenly his companion, his wild rescuer, lunged protectively forward. placing itself fiercely between Alex and the two attackers. The wolf's stance was undeniably aggressive, teeth bared, ears pinned back, growl intensifying to a threatening snarl. The men's cocky bravado wavered, uncertainty flickering briefly across their faces. The taller one glanced nervously at his companion, hesitating for the first time. "What's this? A pet wolf?" he scoffed nervously, attempting bravado. "Stand aside, dog, before you get hurt." But the wolf held firm, muscles taut, its message clear. Attacking Alex would mean confronting its fierce wrath. Realizing intimidation had failed, the second attacker lunged suddenly. Desperate to regain the upper hand, swinging his flashlight menacingly, with lightning-fast reflexes, the wolf sprang forward, jaws snapping sharply. The attacker recoiled instantly, dropping his flashlight, stumbling backward in shock and pain. A shallow wound marked his forearm, blood quickly staining his sleeve. Both men stepped hastily back, eyes wide with sudden fear. Alex watched, stunned. The wolf, wild and free, was now fearlessly defending him, risking its own safety against armed assailants. Gratitude, admiration, and awe filled his chest, replacing fear with profound respect for the creature. Seeing their resolve shattered, the attackers exchanged panicked glances, finally deciding the risk wasn't worth their reward. The taller man spat bitterly, backing slowly away. "You're not worth it," he snarled at Alex. "But if you ever breathe a word about us..." His companion yanked him sharply, urging immediate retreat. Within moments, both had vanished into the shadows, leaving Alex alone once more, heart still racing from the encounter. He sank weakly to the ground, breath shallow, overcome by relief and astonishment. The wolf relaxed slightly, ears perking forward, growls fading into silence. It turned gently toward Alex, cautiously approaching, sniffing softly in reassurance. Alex reached out hesitantly, fingers gently brushing the wolf's coarse fur. "You saved me," he whispered softly, voice thick with emotion. "You risked your life, for me." In that quiet moment beneath the stars, an unspoken bond formed, one of trust, respect, and deep gratitude. Yet even as relief filled Alex, reality lingered heavily. He was still deep in the wilderness, exhausted and injured, unsure of how he'd find safety before sunrise. The wolf, seeming to sense his hesitation, turned deliberately, signaling Alex to follow again. Trusting completely now, Alex rose and followed without question. Guided by moonlight and the wolf's silent, confident strides, they eventually reached the edge of the distant lights they'd glimpsed earlier. At last, a ranger station emerged, a beacon of hope against darkness. Tears stung Alex's eyes again, this time with profound gratitude. The wolf had not only saved him from immediate harm, but delivered him safely back to humanity, ending his nightmare. As Alex approached the building, a sudden uncertainty seized him. What would become of his wild savior now? Would the rangers see the wolf as a threat, harming it unjustly? Could Alex protect the creature that saved him? He turned quickly, urgently searching for the wolf behind him. But as he did, he found the animal already retreating quietly into shadows, eyes meeting Alex's one final time, gentle yet wild, understanding yet free. They exchanged a silent, meaningful farewell, an acknowledgement of their shared experience etched deeply into their hearts. Alex raised his hand gently, whispering quietly, "Thank you for everything." With a soft huff, the wolf vanished gracefully into darkness, leaving Alex staring after it in quiet awe. This unexpected encounter, filled with peril and wonder, had profoundly altered his perception of wild animals forever. But little did Alex know, his experience wasn't entirely over yet. Approaching the ranger station's entrance, his story seemed impossible, perhaps unbelievable. Would the rangers trust his incredible account of survival, or would they suspect he was delirious, disbelieving the wild tale? As Alex raised his fist to knock, the door suddenly swung open, revealing a startled park ranger whose expression immediately shifted into shocked recognition, someone Alex had never expected to see again, whose presence brought a shocking twist that would change everything. Standing illuminated by the cabin's warm interior lights was Ranger Emily Sullivan, someone Alex hadn't seen for almost 2 years. Their friendship had quietly faded after a falling out, a misunderstanding neither had ever addressed. Emily's eyes widened in shock, lips parted, momentarily speechless. "Alex?" Emily finally whispered, disbelief evident in her voice. "Is that really you? What happened?" Alex stumbled forward, exhaustion and relief overwhelming him. Emily quickly reached out, catching him gently by the arm and guiding him carefully inside. The ranger station was small but cozy, the crackling fire casting comforting warmth against Alex's shivering frame. Emily moved swiftly, grabbing blankets and a steaming mug of tea, eyes filled with concern. "Sit," she urged softly, helping him into a chair. Her professionalism returned quickly as she assessed him for injuries. "You're safe now. What happened out there?" He hesitated, realizing his story might sound entirely absurd. Yet Emily's sincere gaze, filled with worry and compassion, emboldened him. Taking a deep breath, Alex recounted everything, the attackers, being tied up and abandoned, and most incredibly, the mysterious wolf that had freed and protected him. Emily listened quietly, expression unreadable. As he finished, he saw skepticism flicker briefly across her face, replaced quickly by gentle compassion. "Alex, are you sure about this wolf?" she asked gently. "Wolves don't typically behave that way, especially not wild ones." Frustration flared within Alex. "I know it sounds crazy, Emily," he admitted, voice trembling, "but it happened. That wolf saved my life twice tonight, once from freezing alone tied to a tree, and again from those attackers. Without him, I'd be dead." Emily held his gaze steadily, finally nodding softly. "I believe you," she whispered reassuringly. "I do. I've spent years in this wilderness, seen things animals do that defy explanation. Wolves are incredibly intelligent. Maybe he sensed your desperation, your vulnerability." Relief flooded Alex, grateful for her understanding. He relaxed slightly, sipping the tea, warmth gradually returning, but Emily's eyes still reflected deep concern. "These men who attacked you, can you describe them clearly?" she asked, voice sharpening professionally. "We've had reports of violent robberies nearby, dangerous people preying on isolated campers and hikers." Alex nodded, describing them vividly. Emily took notes quickly, expression darkening. "This matches the description from other incidents," she said gravely. "Alex, you're incredibly lucky to be alive." As she prepared to radio other park authorities, a strange thought crossed Alex's mind. "Emily," he asked slowly, voice hesitant, "have there been other unusual reports lately? Animals behaving strangely? Maybe wolves?" She paused, turning slowly, expression wary. "What makes you ask?" He hesitated, choosing words carefully. "This wolf, it acted so deliberately, like it understood what was happening, almost human-like." Emily's gaze softened slightly. "Actually," she admitted quietly, "there have been recent reports, wolves protecting lost hikers, even leading them safely from dangerous areas. At first, I thought they were just exaggerated stories, myths, but after hearing your experience, maybe there's truth there." Alex felt a thrill of excitement, curiosity ignited within him. Could it be the same wolf? Could it be helping others like it helped me? Emily shook her head gently. "I don't know. But it certainly makes your story credible. And maybe there's something extraordinary happening out there. Nature always surprises us, Alex." A sudden knock at the station door startled them both. Emily opened it cautiously, revealing another ranger, Jonathan Evans, visibly breathless, eyes urgent. "Emily, another hiker was attacked nearby. We just got the report. A camper escaped but described 2 masked men." Emily's gaze hardened. "That matches Alex's description exactly. They're escalating. We need immediate action." Jonathan glanced at Alex curiously, clearly puzzled by his presence. "Alex was their victim too. He barely survived," Emily explained quickly. Jonathan nodded, understanding instantly, respect filling his expression. "We could use your help identifying them clearly," Jonathan told Alex firmly. "Your detailed descriptions might finally help us catch these men." Alex stood shakily, determination flooding him. Anything I can do, these men need to be stopped. Outside, a commotion erupted suddenly, urgent voices and shouting breaking the quiet night. Emily's radio crackled sharply. "Ranger Sullivan, urgent!" A large wolf was spotted near the campground, acting aggressive, not letting anyone near the Eastern Trail entrance. Alex felt dread grip his heart. "No," he whispered desperately. "They'll hurt him. Emily, we have to stop them." "He saved me. He's protecting someone else now, I know it." Emily hesitated briefly, eyes meeting Alex's deeply emotional gaze, finally nodding decisively. "Let's go," she commanded, grabbing her gear. "We need to find him first, before anyone harms him. Jonathan, alert the others. Nobody harms that wolf unless absolutely necessary." As they sprinted into the night, Alex's pulse thundered fiercely, anxiety and hope blending within him. He needed to protect the wolf that had saved him, return its remarkable act of kindness. Yet even as they raced toward the campground, Alex couldn't help wondering desperately. Was it already too late? Could he save the wolf that had once saved him? And as they approached rapidly, distant panicked shouts filling the night, he realized the true reason the wolf was behaving aggressively. What it was protecting now would leave him, and everyone else, absolutely speechless. Rushing toward the campground, Alex's pulse hammered fiercely, breath quickening with fear and urgency. Beside him, Emily navigated swiftly through the dense trees, her flashlight cutting sharply into the darkness. Ahead, frantic voices and the chaos of panicked campers echoed through the forest, amplifying Alex's anxiety. Upon reaching the campsite clearing, Alex's heart sank instantly. The scene was tense, chaotic, and charged with desperation. Campers stood back anxiously, flashlights illuminating an agitated circle surrounding something hidden by the shadows. Something large, powerful, and fiercely protective. At the center stood the wolf, his powerful body blocking the campers from accessing a dense patch of brush and fallen logs. His hackles were raised aggressively, growls vibrating deeply, teeth bared in clear warning. Two rangers held tranquilizer guns ready, cautious yet prepared to act. Alex felt panic spike instantly. He couldn't let harm befall the wolf that had saved him. "Stop!" Alex shouted desperately, stepping forward quickly, startling everyone present. Emily stood beside him protectively, raising her hands to calm the tense rangers. "Don't hurt him, please. He's protecting something. He won't harm anyone without reason." The lead ranger, an older man named Derek, hesitated, visibly wary. "This wolf's a threat, Alex. It's aggressive and unpredictable. We can't risk it hurting campers." "No," Alex pleaded urgently. "I know this wolf. He saved my life tonight. Twice. He isn't a threat. Please, trust me." Derek exchanged uncertain glances with his team, skepticism clear. But Emily stepped forward firmly, supporting Alex passionately. "He's telling the truth. This wolf led Alex to safety and protected him. If it's acting this way now, there's a reason." Slowly, cautiously, Alex moved toward the wolf, hands open, voice gentle yet trembling slightly. "It's okay," he whispered softly. "Remember me. I won't hurt you. Just let me help." The wolf's golden eyes met his instantly, recognition clear. Its posture softened slightly, ears lifting forward in cautious curiosity. Growls faded gradually, replaced by cautious panting. Alex drew closer, gently kneeling to the wolf's level. Reaching slowly to reassure him, the crowd watched in stunned silence, witnessing something astonishing. A wild wolf responding trustingly to a human. "See?" Alex said quietly, voice breaking with emotion. "He just wants to protect something." Then, gently, Alex peered into the dense brush the wolf guarded fiercely. What he saw took his breath away, leaving him utterly speechless. Curled tightly among fallen leaves and branches lay a tiny wolf pup, injured, whimpering softly, eyes barely open, clearly vulnerable and scared. Realization hit Alex powerfully. The wolf had been protecting his pup, abandoned or separated from its pack, desperately trying to shield it from humans. Tears filled Alex's eyes instantly, understanding profoundly the wolf's motives. "He's protecting his baby," Alex whispered emotionally, voice trembling. That's why he's aggressive. He was never dangerous, just desperate to save his pup. Gasps rippled softly through the gathered campers, tension fading into awe and compassion. The rangers quickly lowered their weapons, understanding dawning clearly. Derek's expression softened instantly, respect replacing wariness. "We'll help them both," Derek said quietly, nodding firmly. "Let's get the pup to safety. The wolf can come with us if he cooperates. We'll protect them." Slowly, cautiously, Alex reached toward the pup, speaking gently to reassure the wolf. The adult wolf watched carefully but made no aggressive moves, trustingly allowing Alex to lift the fragile pup gently. Alex's heart swelled emotionally, honored and grateful to hold the tiny, helpless creature. As Alex stepped back, cradling the pup carefully, the adult wolf followed closely, protective yet trusting fully now. Rangers respectfully cleared a path, witnessing silently an unprecedented bond forming, a wild predator willingly following humans to save its young. Returning to the ranger station, a wildlife veterinarian was quickly called, carefully examining the pup. The wolf parent hovered closely, watching calmly from a safe distance. Visibly relieved its young was finally receiving care. After treating the pup's minor injuries, the vet smiled gently, reassuring Alex. "This little one will be fine, just scared and exhausted. We'll get them both safely back into the wild once healed." Alex nodded gratefully, tears shimmering. His encounter with the wolf had profoundly reshaped his understanding of nature, trust, and compassion. Looking into the adult wolf's eyes, he saw intelligence, gentleness, and gratitude reflected clearly, a silent, powerful communication beyond words. Hours later, as dawn gently painted the horizon, Alex stood quietly outside the ranger station, watching father and pup resting peacefully together. Emily approached softly, standing beside him. "Incredible, isn't it?" she murmured softly. "Nature always surprises us." Alex nodded emotionally, heart swelling. "He saved my life. I owed it to him to return the favor." Emily smiled gently. "He trusted you because he saw kindness, not fear. That bond, it's extraordinary." But their quiet moment was suddenly interrupted. Jonathan, breathless and urgent, raced toward them, expression tense. "Alex, Emily! One of the attackers was just apprehended nearby. He had your camera, Alex. Photos and proof of their identities. But his partner's still out there, dangerous and desperate." Alex's pulse quickened instantly. The threat wasn't over. The remaining attacker was still free, determined to silence Alex and anyone who could identify him. Yet suddenly, a familiar, protective growl rumbled softly behind Alex. Turning quickly, Alex found the wolf standing again, ears alert, posture firm, silently conveying its readiness to protect him once more. Alex felt deeply moved. Once again, the wolf, his wild protector, had chosen to stand by his side, and now, Alex realized profoundly, the danger had escalated further. Would the wolf risk itself again, confronting an even greater threat to defend Alex once more? Or had Alex unknowingly placed them both in even greater peril? The sky above the forest was now fully lit with morning light, yet the air remained tense. Inside the ranger station, Alex sat with Emily and Jonathan, trying to process the news. One of his attackers had been caught, but the second, the more violent one, was still on the run, likely armed and panicked. "He won't go far," Jonathan assured, voice clipped. "He knows he's exposed, but that also makes him dangerous. He's not going to risk being taken alive." Emily nodded gravely. "He's likely watching, trying to figure out if Alex is alone. If he thinks there's still a way to eliminate the only witness," Alex tensed, "then I can't stay in here hiding. If he's out there hunting, we need to find him before he finds me." Jonathan frowned. "You're not a ranger, Alex. You've already been through enough." "He's right," Emily interrupted, surprising them both. "Alex knows this man. He saw his face. That kind of detail could mean the difference between capturing him or missing him in the trees." She turned to Alex. "But you don't go alone. We go as a team." Just then, a soft whine interrupted the conversation. Alex turned to see the wolf pacing gently outside the window, his pup now resting in a makeshift pen in the back room, watched over by a vet. The adult wolf looked alert again, eyes locked on the edge of the forest as if he sensed something none of them could. Alex stood quickly, heart racing. He knows. He feels something. Emily grabbed her radio and rifle. Then we trust him. Let's go. The group moved quickly. Jonathan took the lead with Emily at his side, Alex behind them, and the wolf, a silent sentinel, circling near the edges of the trail, his nose lifted to the wind. Every few seconds, the animal paused, ears perked, muscles tensed like coiled springs. They followed the trail northeast toward a rocky overlook, an area campers rarely visited due to treacherous footing. It was isolated, dangerous, the perfect place for someone to hide or to set an ambush. The group slowed as they neared the ridge. The wolf stopped abruptly, standing still as stone, his head low and growling deeply. The message was clear. Someone was close. Suddenly, a branch snapped. A shadow moved to their left, then another to their right. Jonathan raised his hand for silence, scanning the terrain. Then, without warning, a gunshot rang out, splintering a tree trunk mere inches from Emily's shoulder. "Down!" Jonathan shouted, diving behind a fallen log. Emily pulled Alex to cover, heart pounding. The wolf snarled violently, charging toward the gunfire without hesitation, disappearing into the thicket. "Scout protocol! Triangle defense!" Emily commanded. Jonathan flanked right, rifle drawn as she moved left. Alex remained crouched, trembling, eyes locked on the trees. Then silence, followed by another gunshot, followed by a scream. The forest fell still. Moments later, the wolf re-emerged, blood on his fur but no sign of injury. Behind him limped a man, clothes torn, face scratched, holding his hands in the air. Emily raised her weapon. "Drop it." The man's pistol fell to the ground with a dull thud. Jonathan tackled him instantly, pinning him as Emily moved to secure the scene. Alex stood slowly, awestruck. The wolf had tracked, found, and disarmed a dangerous human with surgical precision and hadn't killed him. As the rangers handcuffed the man and read him his rights, the wolf sat quietly beside Alex, his breath heavy but calm. Alex knelt beside him, resting a hand gently on the wolf's shoulder. "You did it again," he whispered. "You found him. You stopped him. You saved all of us." Emily approached, her eyes full of wonder. "He didn't attack to kill," she said softly. "He pinned him, cornered him, just like he did with you. It's not just instinct. It's intelligence, purpose." Back at the station, the second man's arrest completed the case. The stolen items, including Alex's camera, wallet, and memory cards, were recovered. The photos on the camera clearly showed the attackers' faces before the ambush, leaving no doubt in court. That night, as the wolf lay curled beside his pup, now steadily recovering, Alex watched them from the porch of the ranger station. Emily joined him, 2 steaming mugs in hand. "They'll be released together," she said, "far from here in a safe, protected habitat. The pup's healing fast, and the adult. He's a survivor and a guardian." Alex looked at her, eyes shining with emotion. "He's more than that. He's a friend." But even as peace settled over the forest and justice was finally served, a letter arrived for Alex the next morning. One that would open a completely new chapter in his life. It came stamped with the seal of a federal wildlife agency, and its contents would leave Alex more speechless than anything the wolf had ever done. Alex held the envelope in his hands for a long moment, staring at the official seal embossed on its surface. The words, "Department of Wildlife and Natural Resources, Division of Special Observation," were printed in bold at the top. It wasn't just a thank you letter or a legal formality. He could feel it. Something bigger was inside. Emily leaned against the porch railing beside him, sipping her coffee. "You gonna open that or keep reading the seal until sunset?" Alex gave a nervous laugh, then tore the envelope open. Inside was a thick document, an official letter followed by several forms and stamped documents. His eyes scanned quickly, heartbeat rising. "Dear Mr. Carter, your recent encounter and actions within Yellowstone National Park have come to the attention of our division. The documentation, eyewitness accounts, and recovered photographic evidence suggest you were involved in a highly unusual and potentially groundbreaking interaction between a wild wolf and human beings under life-threatening conditions. Your case has been reviewed and escalated to the Wildlife Behavioral Intelligence Unit. Based on your recorded account, ranger testimony, and the restraint and behavioral precision displayed by the wolf in question, we believe this animal may be part of an undocumented behavioral anomaly worth further study. Alex's eyes froze on the next paragraph. We would like to formally invite you to participate in a 6-month wildlife behavioral study in partnership with the Yellowstone Conservation Initiative. This research will focus on high sentience behavioral response in large predators, specifically crown wolves. Your first-hand knowledge and connection with the animal, now catalogued as Subject YW117, is considered invaluable. He looked up slowly, stunned. They want me to join a government research project, he murmured, voice nearly lost in disbelief. They want me to help study him. Emily's eyebrows lifted. That's actually incredible. He scanned further. The letter continued. Subject YW117's unprecedented non-aggressive behavior, apparent protective instinct toward humans, and repeated strategic decision-making suggest cognitive functions not commonly observed in wild specimens. We intend to monitor his recovery, eventual reintroduction into the wild, and his relationship with his offspring. Then, near the bottom, additionally, we believe there is an opportunity for monitored recontact between you and Subject YW117 in a secure wildlife preserve environment. This request is pending your agreement and participation in the research team. Alex's hands trembled slightly. He looked over at Emily, his voice a mix of awe and hesitation. They're asking me to go with him, not just study him. They want me to see him again, on purpose, under supervision. She smiled gently, her expression tender. You should do it. Alex hesitated, looking down at the wolf and his pup resting beneath a grove of pine trees. The adult wolf had become quieter since the final confrontation, almost contemplative, as though sensing his journey with Alex was nearing a transition. I'm not a scientist, Alex said. I'm a photographer who got lucky or unlucky. Emily shook her head. No, Alex. You earned his trust. You respected him. That's what matters. Alex let the words settle in, glancing back at the letter. Part of him feared it. What if the reintroduction failed? What if the wolf no longer recognized him? But deeper still, another voice spoke, one that had echoed ever since the ropes had first snapped under the wolf's teeth. You owe him your life. He looked back at the wolf once more. Their eyes met. No fear, no tension. Just mutual understanding. That same flicker of recognition that had appeared in the dark forest now returned, steady and calm. I'll do it, Alex said quietly. The next few days passed quickly. Wildlife agents arrived to transport the wolf and his pup to a protected facility. They'd be monitored, cared for, and reintroduced when the time was right. Alex signed the agreement, set a leave of absence with his employer, and prepared mentally for what lay ahead. On the morning of their departure, Alex stood at the edge of the field where the animal carriers waited. The wolf paced once inside his large cage but showed no distress. When he saw Alex, he paused and lowered his head, not in submission, but in peace. Alex crouched beside the cage. I'll see you again soon, he said, hand resting gently against the bars, not as a victim, as someone who finally understands what you are. Emily stood nearby, watching the moment quietly. She had never seen anything like it, a wild creature choosing again and again to protect a man rather than flee from him. And as the truck pulled away, tires kicking up a soft cloud of dust, Alex stood tall, heart full. He hadn't just survived the forest. He hadn't just witnessed something rare. He had been chosen, and somewhere deep in that wolf's soul, a bond had been formed, one that wasn't done with him yet. But what neither Alex nor anyone else knew was that the next time they met, it wouldn't be in a controlled facility. It would be in the wild, unexpected, urgent, and in the middle of a new danger that would test the bond between man and wolf like never before. Alex now found himself in the heart of the Gallatin Range, a vast stretch of rugged wilderness straddling the Montana-Wyoming border. Far less trafficked than Yellowstone, this area had been chosen specifically by the Wildlife Behavioral Intelligence Unit as the rewilding site for subject YW117 and his pup, now strong, healthy, and fully capable of surviving on their own. The unit had built a discreet observation post tucked into the cliffs above the valley floor. From there, scientists tracked the wolves' movements, monitored their integration into the wild, and studied their behaviors in real time. Alex had been stationed there as a civilian consultant, photographer turned behavior liaison, spending most days behind lenses, binoculars, or audio monitors, documenting everything the animals did. The poop, designated YW117 beta, had grown fast. Playful, energetic, and curious, it often strayed short distances from its father before always circling back. The adult wolf, meanwhile, remained a commanding presence, cautious but calm, aware of the trackers yet unbothered by them. His territory expanded weekly, his confidence growing with each hunt successfully executed. Still, every time Alex glimpsed him through the trees, he couldn't help but feel the invisible tether between them. They hadn't interacted directly since the transport. The protocol prohibited contact, no voice, no approach, no food. The goal was clear: allow the wolf to return fully to his wild nature, free from dependence on humans. Alex respected it, until the morning everything changed. He was setting up early, the air crisp, frost still clinging to the grasses around the cabin, when his radio crackled urgently. It was Erin Haskins, the project's field director. "Alex, you're closest to the southern perimeter. We just got word that a pair of poachers may have crossed into the preserve last night. A motion sensor tripped by the river. Patrol is 40 minutes out. Can you take a drone up now and check from your ridge?" Alex's stomach dropped. Poachers in a wolf reintroduction zone. "I'm on it," he replied immediately, grabbing the compact drone kit and sprinting toward the overlook. He launched the drone within minutes, guiding it carefully over the thick canopy. The live feed showed nothing for several passes, just quiet forest and lazy sunlight spilling over treetops. Then, movement. Two figures in heavy camo, one holding what looked like a scoped rifle. They were near the river, just a few hundred yards from where the wolves had been last tracked. "Visual confirmed," Alex radioed. "Two men, armed, near South Fork trailhead, moving west." He didn't wait for instructions. He already knew what he was going to do. Racing down the back trail, he left the drone circling overhead to maintain visual. His boots crunched through frozen leaves as he moved quickly yet quietly through the underbrush, heart pounding with fear. Not for himself, but for the wolves. The poachers didn't know it, but they were heading straight toward the wolves' current denning area. Minutes later, Alex slowed, crouched behind a fallen tree as he spotted the two men less than 50 yards ahead. One of them pointed toward a cluster of large boulders, exactly where the wolves had been spotted last. That's when Alex saw the adult wolf. He was standing atop the rocks, barely visible in the dappled light, but fully aware. His ears were flattened, body low, protective, and ready. The poachers hadn't seen him yet, but they were close. Too close. Alex had no weapon, no tranquilizer, not even a flare gun. He had one choice. Stepping out from behind the fallen log, he raised his voice. "Hey! Step away from the rocks. This is federal land. You're trespassing." The men spun, startled. One raised the rifle instinctively. "Who the hell are you?" "Wildlife team," Alex bluffed. "Patrol's on the way. Cameras are on you. Leave now and maybe you walk." They hesitated. Too long. Behind them, a snarl tore through the air. The wolf leapt from the rocks, landing just yards from the poachers. Not attacking, just a clear, unmistakable warning. The rifle dropped instantly. One man ran. The other tripped backward, scrambling in fear. Alex rushed forward, yelling, "Go, move!" The two men vanished into the trees, crashing wildly through the forest. Silence returned quickly, heavy and charged. Alex turned slowly. The wolf stood there, still and silent, eyes locked onto Alex's, no fear, no hesitation, just recognition. Alex didn't speak. He simply placed a hand over his heart. The wolf tilted his head slightly, then turned, trotting calmly back toward the den. He had understood, and just like before, he had chosen. But what Alex didn't know was that this moment would mark the beginning of something far bigger. The wolf wasn't just reacting anymore, he was watching, waiting, and the next time their paths would cross, it wouldn't be over poachers. It would be over something far more dangerous and far more human. The following days passed under a strange tension, a mix of calm and vigilance. The wolf had returned to his den, the pup never straying far from his side. Rangers confirmed that the poachers were intercepted at the highway, arrested without resistance and their gear confiscated. No shots fired, no injuries, but in Alex's mind the danger hadn't passed. Not truly. What lingered wasn't fear of criminals. It was the unshakable feeling that something had shifted in the forest itself, as though a fragile line had been crossed. The wolves were no longer just part of a scientific study. They were targets, symbols. And someone, somewhere, had decided they were valuable for the wrong reasons. Erin gathered the team that night. The field station buzzed with low conversations and rustling maps. A new ranger, Devon Ramirez, spoke first. The poachers didn't get that deep in by chance. They had a map, GPS pings, and trail notes. This was coordinated. Alex felt a weight settle in his chest. "You're saying someone gave them intel?" Erin nodded gravely. "That's exactly what I'm saying. We think someone inside the department may have leaked the wolves' location, not necessarily from our team, but someone with access to federal tracking data." A heavy silence followed. Eyes shifted around the table. Trust, once easy and implicit, now flickered under a shadow of doubt. "We're locking the GPS logs," Erin continued. "Only 4 of us will have real-time access to the trackers, and we're doubling the motion sensor grids around the den perimeter. No more risks." Alex glanced toward the window. The wolves were out there, sleeping beneath the stars, unaware that their lives had become something more than wild. He'd come here thinking his role was to observe, perhaps to reconnect, but now it felt like something else entirely. Later that night, alone in the quiet of his sleeping quarters, Alex replayed the moment by the rocks over and over. The wolf's warning snarl, the look they exchanged afterward. It hadn't been instinctual, it had been measured, intentional. There was something behind those eyes that no data point could explain. Trust, yes, but also awareness, decision. He didn't sleep well. At dawn, a knock at his door broke the stillness. Emily stood there, bundled in her ranger jacket, her expression unreadable. "You need to see something," she said simply. They walked the ridge in silence. The air was colder than usual. Below them, in the soft clearing near the stream, the wolf and his pup were moving, but something was off. The adult wasn't simply patrolling or leading. He was agitated. Head low, tail rigid, his body moved with deliberate tension. Then Alex saw it. 2 sets of unfamiliar boot prints crossing the lower riverbank, not the ranger's route, not the researchers'. Fresh, unapproved. Emily exhaled slowly. Trail cams picked up nothing. Whoever it was, they disabled the closest sensor. "And the wolf saw them," Alex said. It wasn't a question. Emily nodded. "He's tracking them, right now, but not chasing. He's staying close to the pup, which means he knows they're still nearby." A quiet dread took root in Alex's gut. Whoever came back didn't come to poach. They came to watch. Emily didn't answer. She didn't have to. They descended the ridge carefully, circling toward the path to the southern lookout. Every twig that snapped beneath their boots made Alex flinch. His body was alert in a way it hadn't been since that night he was tied to a tree. And it wasn't just the woods making him nervous. There was something personal about this intrusion. They reached the south lookout post, a small weatherproof box on stilts used for wildlife observations. Inside, the equipment was still warm, freshly used. A thermal scope had been repositioned. Someone had been here within the last hour. "Could have been one of ours," Emily murmured, though doubt edged her voice. Alex opened the logbook clipped to the wall. No entries since yesterday. Protocol broken. Then he noticed it, on the windowsill, nearly hidden beneath a camera lens cover. A cigarette butt, still smoldering. He picked it up carefully with a gloved hand, heart thudding. The only people assigned to this operation didn't smoke. Back at the station, Erin was already reviewing access logs. One name stood out. an auxiliary contractor who had worked briefly during setup, then disappeared after 2 weeks. A man named Grant Heller, former military, low clearance, nothing alarming on paper, but now Erin's face was pale. He was discharged for behavioral misconduct. He's been missing for 10 days. Alex met Emily's gaze. If this man was watching the wolves, disabling cameras and sneaking past federal motion sensors, he wasn't just curious, he was planning something. And whatever it was, the wolf, once again, might be the only one who could sense it before it was too late. The next 48 hours became a blur of controlled panic, hushed strategy meetings, and tightened security. The mood among the research team had shifted from wonder to watchfulness, and every sound in the forest now held the weight of suspicion. Motion sensors were recalibrated, camera feeds rechecked every hour, and ranger patrols were staggered throughout the day and night. But one truth rose above the rest, unspoken yet understood by everyone. The wolf knew. While the researchers scrambled with equipment and data points, the adult wolf YW117 had altered his behavior. He no longer slept in open clearings. His movement patterns shifted unpredictably. He rarely left the pup alone, and, most telling of all, he stopped howling. "It's like he's gone completely silent," Emily said, her voice low, eyes scanning the monitor. "He knows someone's out there." Alex stood behind her, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the live thermal feed from the southeastern quadrant. "He's going into defensive mode. This isn't random behavior," Jonathan chimed in, tapping a tablet. "The team is planning a formal lockdown tomorrow. No civilians in the field. That includes you, Alex." But Alex shook his head. "If something's about to happen, I need to be out there. He knows me. If he needs help, I'm the only one he might allow close." Erin, sitting nearby, didn't respond immediately. She looked at him, tired but thoughtful. "You're not wrong. But if you go out there, we're pairing you with someone armed. That's non-negotiable." "I won't argue," Alex replied. By dusk, Alex was geared up with a radio, light body armor, and a silent companion, Ranger Callum Briggs, a quiet man with a calm disposition and a calm rifle. They left the station on foot, heading toward the southern ridge where the cigarette had been found. The hope wasn't to confront anyone, but to observe, to see what the wolf had already seen. The forest was quiet, eerily so. No birdsong, no rustling brush, just the crunch of boots over old leaves and the occasional static of the radio in Alex's pocket. As they passed a tall grove of pine trees, something caught his eye. A strip of faded fabric tangled in a low-hanging branch. Callum noticed it too. He walked forward and gently tugged it loose. Camouflage. Fresh. No more than a day old. "Somebody's camping nearby," he muttered. Alex's gaze drifted up the ridge, toward a shadowed outcrop of boulders. Something about the silence made his skin prickle. He looked down and froze. Wolf tracks. But not just one, two. One large, one small, and both recent. Alex crouched instinctively, fingers grazing the cold earth. The pup had followed its father this time. That wasn't typical. The adult usually kept the pup away from danger, but this time, the tracks led toward the ridge. As they climbed, Alex's heartbeat grew louder in his ears. The terrain narrowed into a corridor of rock, natural cover for anyone lying in wait. Suddenly, Callum held up a hand, signaling a stop. He crouched low, peering around a narrow bend. A tent, not a hiker's tent. No markings, no campfire, just canvas rigged low to the ground, almost hidden. Callum reached for his radio, whispering into it for backup and authorization. Then, a sound, a snap of a twig behind them. Both men turned, too late. A figure emerged from the trees, rifle raised, a lean, weathered man with a hard face and eyes that didn't blink. "Drop it," he growled. Callum hesitated for half a second. The man chambered around. "I said drop it." Callum slowly lowered his weapon. Alex stayed still, hands raised. "You're Heller," Alex said quietly. The man didn't respond, but something flickered in his expression. Recognition. He knew Alex. "You've been tracking them?" Alex continued, voice measured. "The wolf and the pup. Why?" The man gave a dry, humorless smile. Because they're worth more than your whole little research grant. Do you have any idea what collectors pay for animals like that? Especially one that's not afraid of people? Alex's blood ran cold. You were going to take them? No, Hella said simply. I'm going to take them. Then another sound, low, guttural, growing louder. A growl. Hella's eyes flicked left just as the wolf emerged from the trees behind him, not lunging, not attacking, standing. Between Hella and the pup, who now cowered just feet behind Alex, Callum took the opening. With lightning precision, he dove left, grabbing his weapon. Hella turned to fire, but the wolf moved first. Not to kill, but to drive. It charged low, fast, snapping its jaws as it cut across Hella's line of sight. The man staggered, fell sideways, gun clattering on stone. Alex rushed forward, grabbing the pup and pulling it to safety. Behind him, Callum pinned Hella to the ground, radioing for backup. The wolf circled once, then stopped. It looked at Alex, calm, alert, chest heaving with breath. Not a single drop of blood on its fur. He had done it again. He had saved them, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And for the first time, Alex realized something he'd never fully allowed himself to believe. This wolf wasn't just intelligent. He was protecting something far greater than territory or instinct. He was protecting a bond, and that bond had just saved all of their lives. The next 48 hours were a delicate balance between visible calm and an invisible undercurrent of urgency. On the surface, the preserve carried on with its usual rhythm. Technicians logged data, rangers checked their perimeters, and researchers pored over camera footage and GPS logs, but underneath, the tone had changed. Something unspoken had tightened inside everyone, the feeling that the line between observation and danger had been crossed, and no one knew who might cross it next. The wolf had changed too. His behavior grew more tactical. He stopped returning to familiar spots. He kept the pup in closer range, often guiding it into denser areas during the day and circling their range throughout the night. Even his patterns of rest had shifted, more alertness, less stillness. Most notably, he no longer howled, not once, as if he understood that silence was safer now and that whatever was out there didn't deserve to know where he was. Inside the command tent, Erin stood over a digital map with several of the lead rangers and researchers. Everyone watched as updated pings showed the wolf's shifting route, always slightly unpredictable, always doubling back. It didn't follow a natural hunting pattern. It resembled a patrol. He's protecting something, Alex said quietly from the corner. Not just the pup. He's sensing the same thing we are. Something's off. Callum, one of the more experienced rangers, leaned over the tablet and adjusted a motion grid. There were 2 new alerts near the old maintenance trail this morning. No confirmed visuals, but it's the 3rd time in a week that section's been tripped. Could be animals, or not. Emily glanced at the data, her jaw tight. Or someone testing our blind spots. Erin stepped back from the table and exhaled slowly. Okay, no more waiting. I want 2-person teams in the southern quadrant every 4 hours. Nobody goes out alone, and I want silent check-ins, only confirmed pings. If someone's watching us, I don't want to feed them patterns. That afternoon, Alex was paired again with Callum. Armed but cautious, they left at sunset for a slow circuit near the southern ridge, one of the few zones that still had patchy surveillance due to difficult terrain and low signal. As they moved through the forest, the light slipped away slowly, filtered through the dense pine canopy, and the silence that surrounded them was thicker than usual. Even the birds seemed quieter. About halfway through their sweep, Callum raised a hand and slowed. Just ahead, half caught on the edge of a log, was a torn strip of synthetic fabric, camouflage, sun-bleached and weathered, but too clean to be old. Beside it, Alex spotted the unmistakable imprint of a boot, heavy tread, deep enough to suggest someone had been moving quickly and recently. This wasn't a trail left by hikers. Whoever had passed through here hadn't come for the scenery. They followed the tracks carefully up the ridge, weaving between jagged rocks and low brush, until they reached a clearing sheltered on 3 sides by stone. That's when Alex saw them, wolf tracks, large ones, circling, deliberate, and smaller ones beside them. The pup had followed, But what truly set his nerves on edge was how the tracks stopped abruptly near the edge of the clearing, as if both animals had frozen in place. Callum spotted it first, a hidden structure low to the ground, barely distinguishable from its surroundings. Not a tent, more like a temporary blind, built to blend in, equipped with a long-range lens mount and remnants of a small camp that had been cleaned up in a hurry. No one should have been here, and certainly no one from their team. Before they could retreat and radio in, a dry crack snapped behind them, a footstep on brittle wood. Callum turned, and Alex followed his gaze. A man stood in the tree line, half-shadowed, holding a rifle loosely at his side. He wasn't startled. He'd been expecting them. His build was lean, his posture steady. But what unsettled Alex most was the look in his eyes. Calm, flat, without urgency or fear. "You're not supposed to be here," the man said, voice even, almost casual. Alex's breath caught. "Grant Heller." The man gave a slight nod. "I figured someone would find the post eventually." Callum moved subtly to reposition his grip on the radio, but Heller clocked it instantly. He warned, raising the rifle just a bit. "Let's not ruin a peaceful night." Alex felt every hair on his neck rise. "What do you want with the wolves?" "I want what's mine," Heller replied, almost too casually. "You think these animals belong to your science project? You have no idea how valuable they are. Especially the adult. He's a 1 in a million, conditioned, calm, intelligent, and bonded. That's priceless in the right market." Before Alex could respond, another sound broke the moment, a low, deliberate growl rising behind Heller. It was the wolf. He hadn't come silently. He hadn't tried to ambush. He wanted to be seen and heard. Heller turned his head slowly. The wolf stood 10 paces behind him, poised, unwavering, eyes locked, not crouched, not baring teeth, waiting. But when Heller shifted his weight, nervous now, uncertain, the wolf stepped forward once. A message. Callum seized the hesitation, lunging to grab Heller's arm as the rifle dipped. A short scuffle followed. Fast, clean, professional. The gun hit the ground. Callum pinned him to the earth, yelling for backup over the radio. The wolf didn't move. He stood there, breathing hard, until Alex stepped beside him. No words were needed. The message was clear. He had watched. He had waited. And when it mattered most, he had acted, not out of instinct, out of trust. And for the second time in Alex's life, that trust had saved them. By the time reinforcements arrived, the forest had returned to stillness. The chaos, brief but sharp, had passed like a sudden storm. Heller was handcuffed and escorted out without resistance, his eyes flicking once toward Alex, then toward the wolf, as if still trying to process what had happened. Whatever calculation he had made, about dominance, about control, about profit, had failed him completely in the face of something he had never accounted for: loyalty. Alex stood to the side, one hand resting lightly on the wolf's shoulder. The animal had remained still since the confrontation ended, not with fear or tension, but with an eerie calm. His breathing had slowed, his eyes now fixed on the trees beyond, as though his job was done and his watch could finally end. "Are you okay?" Emily asked as she approached, brushing pine needles off her jacket and eyeing the scene with a mix of awe and concern. Alex nodded slowly. "I am now." She crouched slightly, keeping a respectful distance from the wolf. "Did he hesitate at all?" "Not for a second," Alex said, his voice low. "He was already there. He knew it was coming. He was waiting for the right moment." Emily let out a breath, then looked toward the clearing where the pup had been stashed earlier. Safe, unhurt, thanks to the wolf's foresight. "He's more than protective," she murmured. "He's tactical. He doesn't just respond. He anticipates." Back at the station, things moved quickly. Heller's belongings were catalogued: maps, tranquilizers, field notes, photographs. Among the confiscated items were sketches and location markers, not only of the wolf and his pup, but of other known wildlife corridors within the preserve. It became clear that his operation was far more developed than anyone had guessed. This wasn't a one-time poaching attempt. It had been a plan, built over weeks, maybe months. Erin looked over the evidence grimly. He wasn't alone. We'll be dealing with the fallout of this for a while. But for Alex, the immediate concern wasn't the broader implications. It was the wolf. Back outside, the animal had returned to his usual watch point, high on the rocky overlook. The pup had rejoined him now, pressing close into his father's side as if aware that danger had brushed against them and passed by. Alex climbed the ridge slowly, careful not to startle them. When he reached the top, the wolf didn't move. His gaze followed the breeze, his nose twitching slightly, alert but not tense. Alex knelt a few feet away, his presence no longer a novelty between them. "I don't think I can explain you," Alex said softly. "Not to the team, not in the report. You're not what they're expecting to study." The wolf turned his head slightly, just enough to make eye contact. There was no wildness in that look, no flicker of unpredictability. Only a deep, observing stillness, measured, knowing. "I keep thinking about that night you found me," Alex continued. "I thought I was done. I thought you'd finish what the men started, but you didn't. And now here we are, again, full circle. You saved me a second time. Not because anyone asked you to, but because you chose to." He looked out across the valley, where golden light was spilling across the tips of the trees. The sky was softening with the approach of evening, the air turning colder. "I don't know if this is over," he admitted. "I don't know if there are others out there like Hella. But I know you're not just surviving anymore. You're guarding something, not just your pup. Something bigger." The wolf rose slowly, stretching his long limbs, then padded forward with careful grace. He stopped beside Alex, lowered his head slightly, not submission but acknowledgement, then turned toward the forest, where the trees thickened and shadows deepened. The pup followed, its small paws soft against the stone. Alex watched them disappear into the trees, a quiet heaviness in his chest. Not sadness, not fear, something more complex. A mixture of awe and responsibility. The bond they had built wasn't just an emotional connection, it was a contract. A mutual understanding that in a world where instincts ruled, trust had carved out something rarer. Back at the station, the others had already begun packing up. The project, for now, was on hold. Federal investigators were arriving in the morning, and the team was being relocated until the site could be fully secured. But Alex stayed behind a few minutes longer, standing beneath the same tree where the wolf had once stood watch. The silence around him felt sacred, earned, because somewhere in that vast wilderness, a wolf had chosen him, and whatever came next, Alex knew this. That choice, made freely, fiercely, and more than once, was worth protecting at any cost. The following week unfolded like the quiet after a thunderstorm, stillness layered with the unspoken tension of what had nearly happened and what might still come. The field team had been recalled, their equipment disassembled and packed away. The observation posts dismantled as federal agents began their forensic sweep. What had started as a research initiative into unique wolf behavior had evolved into something entirely different. Part criminal investigation, part case study in interspecies trust, and part legend in the making. Yet, through it all, Alex remained. He had been granted special clearance to stay behind temporarily. Housed in a ranger outpost, now doubling as a secure perimeter, while federal authorities sorted through Hella's logs and digital traces. He wasn't just a witness anymore. He had become the bridge between two worlds, one built on science and structure, the other on something primal and unmeasurable. Each morning, Alex woke early, took his coffee to the tree line and waited, not for confirmation or proof, but for the silent presence that had become a part of him. Some mornings the forest gave him nothing, just birdsong and fog stretching across the valley. Other days, he'd catch the shimmer of grey fur between the trees, the flick of an ear, a brief appearance before the wolf slipped back into the wild as silently as he had come. No words, no commands, just presence. That was enough. One evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows crawled long across the hills, Emily returned to the outpost with a document in hand. Her face bore the familiar mix of concern and awe that had followed her since the night of Hella's capture. "You've been asked to speak," she said, handing him the letter. "Washington, a closed-door panel with the Department of Wildlife and Threat Response." Alex skimmed it, his heart pounding. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. They want your account on record, she added, from start to finish. Everything that happened. He sat down heavily, reading the letter again. I don't even know how to explain half of it. Emily gave him a knowing look. Then don't try to explain it. Just tell the truth. He folded the paper carefully. Do you think they'll let me stay involved with the reintroduction program? They'd be idiots not to, she said. But don't underestimate the politics. They've never dealt with anything like this before. A wild animal behaving with this level of discernment, repeatedly protecting a human, anticipating threats, building a bond. Alex nodded slowly. They're afraid of what they can't classify. Exactly. That night, he walked alone to the southern ridge, where it had all come full circle. The stars had begun to appear, faint and scattered above the black treetops, and the wind carried the sharp scent of pine and something older, more untamed. He sat on a cold rock and waited, letting silence settle around him like a blanket. Then, movement. No sound, just a shift of shape in the darkness. The wolf stepped into the open, as if summoned by thought alone. Behind him, the pup followed, larger now, more sure-footed, still staying close. They stopped a short distance away, just watching. Alex didn't move. He didn't need to. The wolf lowered his head slightly, a gesture so subtle it could have been missed by anyone not paying close attention. Not submission, not fear, just recognition. And then, in a motion so brief it nearly broke him, the wolf stepped forward, not to close the distance entirely, but to shorten it, as if to say, I see you still, I remember. Alex's throat tightened. Thank you, he whispered, for everything, for saving me, for trusting me. The wolf turned toward the trees, his pup close behind, and together they disappeared into the forest, silent guardians fading into the dark. No drama, no sound, no last look. But the message remained, etched into the cold earth and into Alex's chest like a scar made of something stronger than fear. That night, as he packed his few belongings for the trip to Washington, Alex paused by the window and looked out over the hills. The stars blinked above the horizon, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere out there, a wolf watched without watching. Not out of duty, not out of instinct, but because he still believed in the man who had once been tied to a tree and who now, because of him, had found a purpose greater than survival. And neither of them would ever be the same again. The hearing room in Washington was nothing like the forest. No wind, no bird song, no scent of pine or distant animal calls, just sterile white light, polished floors, and a half-circle of officials in dark suits whose expressions revealed little more than bureaucratic discipline. Yet Alex sat calmly, not because he felt at home, but because the truth he carried with him was no longer fragile. He had lived it. Erin was seated behind him, flanked by 2 senior rangers and a liaison from the Department of Wildlife Intelligence. Everyone else on the panel had read the reports, reviewed the footage, analyzed the GPS data and thermal scans, but none of them had stood in front of a wolf with nothing but trust in the space between. Alex adjusted the mic and began, not with a statement of fact, but with a moment of silence. He let the room settle, the attention focus before he spoke. The first time he saw me, I was tied to a tree, bleeding, frozen, helpless. And the first choice he made wasn't to attack or ignore me, it was to save me. He didn't embellish. He didn't dramatize. He simply told them everything, chronologically, methodically, without flinching. From the first moment in Yellowstone to the rescue in the clearing, to the standoff with Hela, and the moment the wolf had stepped forward not to harm, but to protect. He included the parts no footage could show, the pacing patterns, the lack of howling, the way the animal had altered his routes in response to danger. He didn't just survive, Alex said. He strategized, he calculated risk, and he prioritized not just his pup's safety, but mine. He could see it in their faces as he spoke, some nodding, others resisting, unsure whether to accept what he was laying before them. But then he placed the final image on the screen, a freeze frame taken from a drone clip. The wolf, eyes fixed on the approaching rifleman, body low but not attacking. Behind him, barely visible, was the silhouette of Alex and the pup. This wasn't instinct, Alex said, his voice tightening. It was awareness. He wasn't reacting. He was deciding. Like we do. A long silence followed. Then one of the older panel members leaned forward, fingers steepled. Mr. Carter, you're asking us to accept a narrative that implies wild wolves may possess a level of situational empathy, not just intelligence, not just bonding, but discernment, judgment. Yes, Alex replied, because that's what happened. Another member, younger, more skeptical, tapped his pen against the table. But how do we prove this isn't projection? You bonded with this animal under extreme emotional circumstances. Couldn't this be your mind assigning meaning to behavior shaped by survival instinct? Alex didn't flinch. If this were just about survival, he would have stayed hidden. He wouldn't have approached me the second time. He wouldn't have confronted a man with a weapon. He wouldn't have risked exposure when he had already won. He chose to intervene when it wasn't necessary. That's not instinct. That's something else. The room fell silent again. And for a moment, even the skeptics didn't speak. The chairwoman finally leaned back in her seat. We'll deliberate and reconvene. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Alex stood, gathering his papers, heart pounding not with fear, but release. The burden of the story no longer sat on his shoulders alone. Now it was part of something bigger, an official record, a national discussion, a challenge to how people saw intelligence, trust, and the wild itself. Outside the building, a light rain fell over the Capitol steps. Emily was waiting, holding 2 coffees. She handed one to him as he descended the stairs, face unreadable. How'd it go? They listened, he said simply. That's more than I expected, she replied with a quiet smile. They walked in silence toward the metro station, the city glowing with wet reflections, traffic humming like a distant river. At the platform, Alex turned to her. They're going to want more than words, he said. They're going to want proof, models, research, results. They'll get it, she replied, because we're not done, not by a long shot. He nodded slowly. She was right, because out there, beneath a sky untouched by artificial light, a wolf and his pup moved through the trees. And they weren't just survivors. They were living proof that the wild was not as simple, not as separate as people believed. The question now wasn't whether anyone would believe Alex. The question was whether the world was ready for what this meant. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the wolf lifted his head into the night, silent, still, and utterly aware that the world was beginning to change. Months passed. The seasons turned, trading autumn's golden fire for the soft, biting hush of winter. Snow blanketed the high ridges where the wolf once stood watch, and the trees creaked under the weight of stillness. In the valleys below, the preservation efforts continued, slow, careful, and watched more closely than ever before. The Department of Wildlife launched a new initiative, quietly and without media fanfare. A long-term behavioral study was approved, one that would span years and include a limited number of species, showing signs of advanced decision-making, protective behavior, and sustained cross-species bonding. The case of subject YW117 became the cornerstone of the project, not as proof of domestication, but as a living question, one the scientific community could no longer ignore. Alex was asked to lead the field documentation team. He accepted, but he didn't return to the wilderness to prove a point. He didn't seek to capture another viral photo or tell another story to stir emotion. He returned because he knew that somewhere out there, a wolf had remembered him. And more importantly, he remembered what it meant to be chosen. Each morning, he'd hike to a new post, his camera slung over his shoulder, his notebook half full of sketches, notes, and questions without answers. He was no longer the outsider. He was part of the landscape now, moving quietly through snow and fog, waiting not for spectacle but for presence. And sometimes, without warning, that presence appeared. A flicker of fur between the evergreens, a silent silhouette cresting a hill at dusk. No sound, no invitation, just the quiet confirmation that the bond still lived. One day, long after most of the world had moved on to other headlines and distractions, Alex stood alone at the southern ridge. He had stopped bringing equipment. He didn't need it. What he came for couldn't be measured, tagged, or recorded. It could only be felt. And as the wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and frozen moss, he saw them, the wolf, older now, more silver threading his fur than black, but no less commanding. And beside him, nearly grown, the pup, no longer uncertain, no longer clinging to shadows. They walked together, shoulder to shoulder, through the clearing and paused only once. Just long enough. Alex stood still. He didn't move. He didn't call out. He simply met the wolf's eyes, those same eyes that had once stared through him as he lay tied to a tree, afraid and alone. And again the wolf chose. He lowered his head ever so slightly, then turned, leading his now grown pup into the woods, disappearing without a sound. But this time, Alex didn't feel the ache of distance. He felt peace, because some connections don't need to be kept. They only need to be honored. And from that day forward, Alex no longer questioned whether the bond was real. He knew it was, because in the darkest moment of his life it had saved him, not once, but over and over. In the most dangerous moments, it had stood between him and death. And when the rest of the world demanded explanations and logic, it offered something deeper: mutual recognition, trust without words, and a love that didn't ask to be understood, just accepted. If this story moved you, if it made you believe, even for a second, that something wild can be deeply good, then you're part of that bond now, too. Subscribe to our channel for more true stories that defy expectations and remind us of what we share with the world beyond our own.